Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Resident Evil 2. I played it on the Xbox One. It's also available on the PS4 and PC. So one thing I'm going to say, because I'm going to try and keep it out of it as much as possible, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. Resident Evil 2 is one of my favorite Resident Evil games. It's probably my second favorite Resident Evil game in the entire franchise. I'm referring to the original Resident Evil 2, that is. Okay, so let's start with the story. You can either play as Claire or Leon. Claire is heading to Raccoon City in search of her brother Chris, who is a member of the STARS unit, which is an elite tactical unit in Raccoon City. Or you can play as Leon, who is a rookie cop who, after radio silence, has decided to go even though he was told not to. The two of them meet up and shit goes sideways like immediately. We're talking zombies at the gas station right out of town, and when they get into town they are separated and have to get to the police station. While there, they discover that there's a much deeper plot going on, and well, the zombies are not necessarily not man-made. One thing I'm going to say is their stories are very similar, and that ties into something else I'm going to address right now, which is the second scenario. Once you beat the main game, you can unlock the second scenario, which is meant to be either Claire's adventure while Leon is doing his thing in the main line, or Leon's adventure while Claire is doing her thing in her main story. And the problem with this is that the second scenario doesn't really diverge much from the main game, apart from items being moved and you run into a certain monster a little sooner. It just didn't feel necessary. The second scenario really just felt tacked on, like there was an A and B scenario in the original, so they decided late in the game that they should probably have a second scenario in this, and it feels like an afterthought. That being said, the main story is actually excellent, and I think they did a good job, despite the fact there is one thing that I found quite distracting eventually, and that's the weird technology in the game. I only point it out because there were times where it was very confusing. I found a videotape in the game where it says it's 1998, yet there are things like USB drives and ID wristbands and helmet cams that aren't super huge and bulky, despite the fact they leave a VHS cassette. But then you also at the same time have CRT monitors, old ass cars, payphones, no cell phones. That I found really distracting because you run into these technologies all throughout the game and they just don't mesh. That being said, it wasn't a huge thing and it didn't ruin the story, but it did distract me from the story at times. As for the audio, I really enjoyed the audio in this game. I will say though that it was a little weird because there have been other instances of Claire and Leon in the Resident Evil universe, and it's very obvious that these are not the same voice actors. That being said, I do think all the voice actors in this game did a good job, although there were times where I've got to say the Leon voice actor, he seemed a little too calm. It was a bit odd at times because of that, because of all the shit that's going on. It was just kind of weird how calm he was. But the music and the sound effects for the guns and the creatures, all of that was excellent. I was really impressed at how well they did with all of that. All the little sound effects going on really turned it into much more of a horror game than previous Resident Evils have ever been. Now, as for the gameplay, it's a third-person, over-the-shoulder, survival horror game. More horror than previous Resident Evils have ever gotten close to. But it is very much a survival horror game. There are limited healing items. Well, I didn't find that too limited. I found ammo far more limited at times. But it really did remind me of how Resident Evil at one point in time was very much a Metroidvania style game, in that you have to explore the map, you have to find different keys, you have to find a variety of different things to solve puzzles and gain new items so that you can further progress. It's really kind of a 3D Metroidvania. And I've got to say, one of my favorite things in this, one of the best features that they have added, is the map. As silly as that sounds, but it's really well used as a beneficial feature in this game. On the map, rooms that you have not fully explored, that there are items that you can still use or may need, are highlighted red, and once you've cleared them of all the usable or key items, they become blue, and that's a fantastic help when you're trying to get through the game. It can help guide you to where you need to go next. I like that there are some different game modes in this. Like I said, there's the main scenario and the second scenario, but I still feel like the second scenario is not really a necessary addition. The only thing it adds is actually kind of a drawback is in each of the second scenarios, each of the characters gets a new pistol. The reason it's a drawback is because that pistol uses a specific type of ammo, and that's the only kind of pistol ammo you will find throughout the game in the second scenario. But that being said, if you craft pistol ammo, it's still for your main weapon rather than this new handgun. So that just was obnoxious to me because it made me not want to craft handgun ammo, but there were definitely times where I really needed handgun ammo. So that was just kind of a pain. Overall, I do enjoy what they did. They stuck to a lot of the puzzle solving, exploration, and, you know, some zombie killing. But it's also at times smart to run from the zombies. Keep that in mind. Now, as for the controls, I actually really like the controls. I think they did a good job. I did have to tone back the aiming and the camera. I honestly prefer not to have to go in and mess with that. I think it should be tuned before I even go in unless I really want to change that. But the aiming and camera were a bit too sensitive at first, so I had to tone those back. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the controls. I think they work pretty much flawlessly with this game. Now, as for the graphics, I am blown away at how good these graphics are. I was really impressed by them. I do have one very large complaint though, and that is the fact that this game is so dark. There's very little lighting throughout this game aside from your flashlight, and it takes away from it at times. It is very clear when you are looking at the world how beautiful it looks, but then you don't see enough of it because it is so dark. And I've got to admit, the fact that it is so dark, while it does help add to the spooky atmosphere, there are certain things that you miss out on, like when you first meet the Licker. I pretty much completely missed that the Licker was there until it attacked me because it was so dark that I couldn't see what was going on. It was honestly a disappointing moment. But to wrap this up, in all reality, I loved this game. I was truly blown away with how well they did as a remake. I do have my complaints being an old school Resident Evil 2 fan, but as far as remakes go, it is fantastic. It does stand well on its own. I will say the main story is far better than the secondary scenario. I don't think that's a necessary element. It felt very tacked on, which was disappointing. I've got to recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I played through it 3 times in a row. I really enjoyed this game. Okay, so to wrap this up, why don't you tell me, do you think Leon should still be a ginger or not? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.